Bam, we're live. Where the fuck is my guest? Oh, there goes the first strike on the show. Good morning, Augustus. This is going to be the show that makes me sign up for Rumble. Maybe. No, not if you watch it here. We will stream it here. I suspect this one will not last on YouTube. That I will get a call from Souza that says, yo, pull this from YouTube. Interestingly enough, it was our guest last time. It was Jay last time after the show who's like, hey, dude, let me do you a favor. I go, what? He goes, pull my show off of YouTube, which I appreciated his sharing of knowledge from his own personal experience. Shannon, what's up? I can't remember what you did something. What do you do? You're some sort of, are you a professional athlete? What do you do? Someone told me something about you. What do you do? Marco, hello. Good morning. Did someone say they worked out with Souza today already? Someone said, I thought I saw something in here. I worked out at Souza's 5 a.m. class. That doesn't even seem real to me that people are. Did the 5 a.m. class this morning? Souza would be proud. Over, not at his gym. Wow. So what do? You get up at 4:30. You have a cup. By the time you're done drinking your coffee, it's 4:45. You get in your car. You get to the gym like with 1 minute to spare. Nuts. Doses. Hey, good morning. Oh, coleslaw. 18 times coleslaw wrestling champion. Could you DM me a video of that? Is that appropriate? Coleslaw wrestling. Oh shit. Now. Damn. We can reschedule. Shit. Let me call Jay. I think we have an issue. Let me call Jay Couey. See what happened. I think that happens now and again. Not often though. I think we're pretty good at okay, I was just in the room. Oh, you were? Oh no. Okay, so he'll be here. Okay, I was just in the room. Oh, maybe I sent him the wrong link. Shit. Maybe I sent Jay the wrong link. Hey,
I was just here.
Did I send you the wrong link?
No, not at all. I was in here like 5 minutes ago and no one was here. And then I looked on a website that said it was only 6 o'clock at your house. So then I thought, oh, maybe it's an hour later. I don't know. Oh. I don't know if the daylight savings time was screwing us up. I apologize.
No, it's good. It's exciting. Keeps everyone on their toes.
I was totally ready to go. So it's not like you're kicking me out of bed or something.
Okay, good. You the man. Good to have you. It's been a minute.
Yeah, it has. Good to see you, man.
For those of you who don't know, Jay's last show when he was on here ended up moving to Rumble. I think it's our most popular show ever on Rumble. All of our shows stream. They're supposed to stream simultaneously to Rumble, Twitch, Facebook, Twitter. But after we got off the last show with Jay's experience, he was like, hey, buddy, you might want to pull this one off of YouTube, which I really appreciated, by the way.
It's all good.
Which is crazy because we didn't even say anything crazy.
Nah, well, we did. I mean, the way you walk around certain things, it matters. And the way that I address transfection and that kind of thing, you can't get around that. That'll always get bumped.
And what is transfection?
That's the particular kind of methodology that they used for these mRNA shots. It's just the term that people were using in universities, academic science for 20 years when you use RNA to express protein in a mouse or in a cell culture. It's just a common term that is one of the reasons why I got fired at the University of Pittsburgh, because I started reminding everybody that, you know, the investigational vaccines that they're selling on the PBS NewsHour right now are just transfections. They're exactly like what we use in our mice. We're not going to give this to our grandkids or our grandparents, are we? And they all didn't understand that. They all just kind of had this assumption that, well, it's kind of like that, but I'm sure they have a different carrier, or they have fixed it, or it's better. They've tested it. They couldn't. I don't think they could make the connection that actually, no, it's just exactly the same stuff that you use, and they're just lying to you about whether it's new or not, because they have to lie to the people. I found it really appalling. It was really the start of the whole mess, was this word transfection. When I started using it over and over again with faculty members in the hallway, eventually I got asked not to come in anymore. And that was the start of this whole story.
I was recently, a few people were upset at some words I was saying. I was telling people, Jay, I knew this lady one time, you couldn't say the word snake around her because she would have a panic attack.
I can believe that.
So there's words that I was just imagining considering yourself a human being, and then let's say a word does upset you, not knowing that, hey, that's your problem. That's like the only thing that kind of separates us from animals, that we're able to be like, hey, I'm offended. Oh, wait, shit. Did I say I am offended? Oh, so you mean that's under my control? I can't imagine not having I feel like that's the only thing that separates me from a fucking dog, is that one little ability to be self-aware and catch that and be like, okay, I could take responsibility for that.
That's a pretty big concept though, man. I mean, I feel like what you're tapping into is essentially what happened at the beginning of the pandemic. There were a tremendous number of people that we thought were adults that had never really taken responsibility for anything in their life. And so when they were offered the opportunity to just go limp, they all went limp.
Yeah.
And it was really quite extraordinary to see it, that these people who I was working with, that I thought had very strong opinions about lots of stuff and that were all independent thinkers, they locked right into what the TV and what the New York Times was saying. And they were all faculty members at a big med school. And they were as vulnerable as the teacher in the elementary school. It was extraordinary, if not more vulnerable in a sense, because they have, and this is where, I don't know where you wanted to go with this, but for me, I wanted to share the fact that after 3 times of listening to our friend Greg Glassman, it finally sunk in what really the big picture of the damage that's been done in academia is, that everyone has been mystified by this ritual of using p-values to falsify null hypotheses, and they have misconstrued this in their own mind as creating knowledge instead of creating noise, or instead of filling in spreadsheets. They actually believe they're creating knowledge, and they believe that they have specialized enough in their creation of knowledge that they're not encroaching on anyone else's knowledge, and so it's harmless. I'm just going to explore my little idea and keep testing these null hypotheses, and really not creating any model that's being verified, not testing any model that's being verified, but they're just kind of spinning their wheels. And because they have themselves accepted this as a way of producing knowledge, when someone else presents knowledge produced this way, they refuse to question it. And so this trap that everyone in academia is in was just not, it wasn't really, maybe I wasn't in the position to see it the first couple of meetings we had. Maybe it was that I was too overwhelmed by all the people that I was meeting and what was going on there. But this time, the last Broken Science meeting, I really felt at home the moment I walked in the door. And as a result, I felt like everything finally sunk in to where, I'll be really honest, I feel like Greg has given me a gift. I feel like basically it's a question of how much work do I want to do, because he's given me a lifetime of stuff to talk about. And
that makes me feel good to hear you say that, because I've heard that you've heard the talk. You've been to maybe 3 of those. I've been on the end of phone calls for over 100 hours, and I've heard practice lectures, and I still don't fully understand it. I have to make a metaphor about it. And you are one of the smartest people that I know and that Greg knows. But yeah, in a nutshell, academia has picked up a flawed method of looking at things. They basically have a lens that has some sort of aberration in it, and they're denying that it has it in it, and they're reporting information that they're collecting that's not using the tools that give us real information. That's sort of how I see it. And it's everywhere. It's how we think about everything. It's how we think about now. It's affected biology, physics, math, all of civilization, how we treat each other through looking through a flawed lens. That's how I process it.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of different ways to do it, and that's the thing. I mean, it's maybe I have to just backtrack a little bit and humiliate myself. I was completely in that system. I really thought that I was trying to figure out how to do that better. I was trying to become a master of that. I was trying to be the best at that. So to get kicked out of that system and actually beg to come back into it while complaining about a lab leak that I later, 2 years later, think now is probably just a trick they played on us so that we'd argue about that. It's been a long, long road to pull myself out of that, because every part of my understanding of reality was formed by this assumption that they had created knowledge and there was no gray area at the edge, when in reality, they've made the gray area absolutely as gray and as wide as possible so that we don't even know where the edge of our understanding is anymore. It's been a long road, and I really think that Greg, and the fact that his father basically never allowed him to fall into this thinking, and then he's had his own, I'm sure you've shared it with your viewers a long time ago, all these different things that have happened to Greg that have, forced him to look this monster in the eye, and as an entrepreneur and everything, I think that's one of the things that I've learned since being out of university, is that when you're running your own business and trying to make a living by just hustle, it's an extraordinary, you don't need to go to bed. There's no time to sleep. It's always a job. Tomorrow is on again. And so I can't imagine that CrossFit was built in any other way. And so then to run into the things that he ran into with CrossFit over the years, he's been pulling himself out of that system and fighting it for much longer than us. And so it's going to take us a while to get to the level of understanding that he has, especially given that he had the dad that he had, which very few of us had a dad that would make us measure 1,000 nails to learn the distribution. But
Right.
That's the kind of childhood he had. So, he's a very unique person. And I'm just really, I still ultimately have Rodney Mullen to thank for being your friend, for being Greg's friend, and for Greg to have the patience with me to invite me to 3 of those things. And still, I don't think he's gotten out of me what he expects to get out of me, and he soon will. It's a monumental task to go from being a biologist to try and think about how to teach biological statistics without trying to make a fool of yourself. But it's a broad picture. And so I'm trying to build a series of lectures that uses what I know about neurobiology to reflect on good neurobiological investigations and pretty bad ones, and examples of how in every good investigation of the brain of a mouse or whatever model system they're using, there are a number of examples of figures where a real model is tested, a prediction is made, and the prediction is verified. And then afterward, there's 4 or 5 figures where null hypotheses are falsified and p-values are used to do that. And so it's a very strange dichotomy of I'm going to do real science, but I understand that in order to get into nature, I have to do 5 figures with p-values. And when you see a real bad paper, the first 2 figures where a model is tested and verified are just not there. And instead they have these, figures where they test against a null hypothesis with p-values. And they also have publications, but you can sort through the literature and actually find biology being done correctly, but with a layer of this ritual always on top of it. And that's what that guy Gert really made clear to me. I actually rode one of those crazy no driver cabs with him, and we talked about
the Waymo.
Yeah, the Waymo. And that's what he explained to me in the cab, that what you can see good science, it's just that they're always forced to jump through this ritualistic hoop of producing a few figures that have p-values and that test against a null. And he finds it really striking that it's just a ritual. You're just forced to do it, and people make up ways to do it. And I've actually, since this last meeting and trying to build this lectures, I found a lot of examples of actually previous work that I've been involved in, where the neuroscience group has decided to come up with a new way of testing a null hypothesis with p-values that's completely unnecessary. And I'm trying to discuss it with Matt Briggs offline, because I want to be able to explain why their probability here, the probability test that they use, is just kind of silly. And it's not done for any other reason than because the editors and the publishers and the rest of the field expects there to be a p-value somewhere. And I think it's pretty funny, because this lab that I worked in that won the Nobel Prize in 2014 has this kind of standard test that they do that I think from a statistics perspective is meaningless given the biology they're trying to test. But they do it, and it gets published in the highest journals because that's what these journals expect. And I don't think that my former boss believes that the test that they're doing now proves that their observations are right. They think that their observations are right because they make predictions and the observations come true. But the journal requires them to do some kind of statistical analysis of what is obviously a result. In other words, let's say you wanted to do a study where you said if you do arm curls 3 times a day, 5 times a week for a month, at the end of the month, you'll be stronger. And at the end of the month, your kid or me, I'm able to arm curl twice as much. Now, you don't need to do statistics to know that that actually worked. But a Nature paper would require you to do statistics on the mean value of what you can arm curl at day 30 with the mean value of what you could arm curl on day 1. And then that would show that the observation was okay. And so you surrender your common sense to probability. And what that has done for people who are doing poor science is that you don't need common sense to use probability to prove something then. And I'm starting to get all kinds of ideas on how to express it, but I do think that finally the wheels are turning in my head, because it is a big idea. It's a big philosophical idea that in some senses, if you just read or listen to what Greg says, it's almost too simple to be true, but it's actually exactly why it is true, because it is a united front that's been there for generations now. And we're still, as I've said before, I was being trained by multiple people to do this ritual. And it was over many years that I was being trained to do this ritual. One of the people that trained me won the Nobel Prize in 2014. So I've been trained by the best. And it's not that all of these people don't think they're doing science. Some of them are doing great science, but there's this layer of this ritual on top that because the good scientists do it, it allows the bad scientists to use it. And that's the best part about it. If good scientists would just say, I don't need to do p-values because I'm testing a model, I made a prediction, the prediction came true, that's 100% verification. Next experiment would take that tool out of the hands of the people who aren't doing model verification. But that's like a pie in the sky kind of theory of how you would get rid of it. I think in reality, you have to get rid of it by teaching the upcoming generation the flaw in it, so that those that do go forward into academic science can change it. I also think we have to keep our kids out. Sorry.
Really quick. Do you have, I was getting a weird echo for a second. No, okay, it's gone.
My blower in the background.
Jay, there is a this is going back a bit. There's a couple things I want to see if you can. I want to talk about transfection. Go back there for a second, but first, Matt Burns. It's not a leak, purposely released. There is a presentation that Jay does that's absolutely wonderful, where the options he lays out there is there's 3 options. There's a lab leak, there's not lab leak, and there's it doesn't exist at all. And then you say, if it doesn't exist at all, then how did they see it? And it's because the manipulation, Jay is proposing the idea that the manipulation happened at the level of the tools that were used to observe it. So anytime they wanted to observe something different, they just tweaked the observing tool a little bit.
Yeah, and the other thing to remember,
the PCR test, right? And basically
with the sequencing too. The sequencing is just PCR.
But the premise of the PCR test is that that tool is so powerful that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jay, is that thing can find anything it wants. So it could find HIV in any human being. It can basically look at things that are so small, we can find anything, anywhere, in anyone. Is that
Yes,
sort of the premise?
but
And so you
it
just
should,
dial it to what you want to find in them.
yeah, but we should be very specific and say
Okay.
that PCR, if done correctly, can be extremely accurate. So you can't find AIDS in you if you use an extremely accurate PCR test designed to be extremely accurate. It won't find it in you.
You mean by that, you mean if you pointed at the right thing?
Yeah. So I mean,
But you can point it at anything you want to find, right? It's like,
yes, but if
it's
you
like a
point it at
telescope
something
and I
it's
say
not
there's
there.
no, it's like a telescope, and if I point it at the sky and I go, look, Jay, there's no moon. You're like, no, move the telescope over here. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah, I
PCR
mean,
test is like that, isn't it?
it is, but think about it more like if you're the primers are short sentences or words, and you're trying to find a book.
Okay.
And so if you choose a sentence like once upon a time, that's not going to be very specific for a lot of books. There's going to be a lot of books in the library that will be positive for that.
Right.
Longer sentence you choose,
Yeah.
the more specific it'll be for the book. And the more careful you are about what you choose, and don't choose, say, chapter 1, or don't choose table of contents, but choose something that's very specific for the book, you can make it very specific.
Right.
So the question becomes, number one, what was the background before 2020? Because we're being told that if we took these tests back in time, that we wouldn't find anything. But that's a very large assumption, given the fact that we found our first coronavirus in 2006. We sequenced the first one in 2006. We tracked one in 2008 for like 27 people. We tracked the one in 2002 for about 51 sequences, 100 sequences, and really only killed 700 people. We didn't get sequences from every one of those people. And so now we suddenly have this scenario where we're being told that over the last 4 years, we've sequenced a single virus 15 million times. That is orders of magnitude in terms of unprecedented biological data. The alternative hypothesis would be that that's a background signal that in 2020 we weren't testing for, and in 2019 we didn't give a shit about, and in 2018 they were still characterizing so that they understood it well enough so that when they decided to tell you it was spread, they could orchestrate the theater well enough so that you'd believe it. And in that case, what they do, just to give you the hypothetical, they would take this background coronavirus signal and they would sequence it over years. And over years, they would have a characterization of what signals they find, how varied they are, and what signals are conserved and what ones are varied. And the ones that are conserved are oftentimes enzymes that copy the virus, or enzymes that are associated with the first parts of infection. And so those are the ones that your immune system, at least as far as traditional immunology will say, are the ones that your immune system focuses on. So the trick would be to say, okay, now there's a new virus, but we already have the phylogeny. We've already figured out how these things are related to each other because we've been watching them for the last 3 years. So then when we take all these swabs and we distribute them in America, where do they go? Well, they get collected by DITRA. Actually, DITRA was distributing and collecting the sequencing swabs from January 2020 onward. We don't know when they quit. So when you hear all these molecular biologists say that we have 15 million sequences of this virus and everybody's contributing sequences to the database, that's kind of a lie, because only DITRA contributed to the sequencing database for an unknown amount of time in 2020 and 2021 and are still basically curating it. So if they wanted to, and I'm sure they wanted to, they could, or I shouldn't say it like that. If they wanted to, they could have taken a background signal, accurately characterized it before the pandemic, and then by collecting all the sequencing swabs and then publishing whatever they wanted to, they could say, here's the original sequence, and now here's the variants, and the variant is this one, and the variant is that one, when in reality, those variants were all available to be tested for, sequenced, found, and tracked. The Delta variant might have always been there. The Omicron variant almost certainly was always there. And so you have this scenario where the people who control the PCR primers control the positivity. The people that control the sequencing primers control the actual sequence that you find. So if they want you to find Delta, they just tweak the primers so that that's the primers that get, that's the sequences that get pulled up out of a background that contains all of those things. So you're looking more, if you think more about how easily the lie could be done, they walked you into a library and said, there are no books in here right now. And then they said, all of a sudden, now there are books all over the place, and here they are. And they pulled them off the shelves one at a time, telling you that they're appearing in that order, when in reality, they were always in the library.
So it's not that it's mutating. They're pointing at different stuff. Look here. Now look here, of things that already existed.
For example, yeah. And I don't think that the alternative is that you give them their story, which is that an RNA molecule coated in a lipoprotein coat in Wuhan has now succeeded in copying itself enough times to be virtually found everywhere. And that has, from a biology perspective, I just got to say, it's absolutely absurd. There's no precedence in history to think that an RNA molecule, not a mosquito, not a species, not a fungus, but an RNA molecule, no matter how many, that's not the way chemistry works. That's not biology. That's a story. And the worst part about it is, and this is still for Matt Burns's question, I guess, is that RNA virology is done that way. Almost all of RNA virology is done by making a DNA copy of the RNA that they find in the wild. Why is that? Because when you go get fungus in the wild and you figure out what it likes to grow on, you can grow fungus in your garage and forever. If you want to breed rabbits, you can go get a couple rabbits and you can keep rabbits in your garage and they'll be there forever if you take care of them. If you want to grow virus in your garage, I don't know. They've been trying a long time, but you can't get virus in the wild and then take it in your laboratory and then just make it like you make bread. It'll eventually peter out. It disappears. It dies out. They don't really know how to explain it. They just say that, well, they're hard to culture. Well, right. The reality is that they find RNA signals in the wild, and when they take those RNA, these preparations, and they put them on cell cultures, the cell cultures die. When they use PCR, they can find RNAs in there. So it's not a question of whether these RNAs exist. It's a question of how they exist in nature. They don't exist in nature where they perpetuate themselves indefinitely for 5 years through millions and millions of conspecifics or the same species. That's not how any virus ever works. That's not how they've ever tracked any of these things before. And so it strikes me as odd that all of these people don't want to tell you that in order to study a coronavirus in a bat, they've always, you can look for all of these bat papers that everybody's got their hair on fire about. They take a sequence that they find in the wild, they fill in the blanks that they obviously always have. When they fill in the blanks, they have a full sequence. They make a DNA copy of that. Then they put that DNA in bacteria and grow that bacteria for a long time. And the bacteria will make lots of copies of that DNA. Then they lyse the bacteria and they have this whole quantity of DNA. Then they can mix that DNA with an enzyme called RNA polymerase that's commercially pure, like any other pharmaceutical would be made. Any other biologic, like a monoclonal antibody, is made just like this. You take that big quantity of DNA, you add the RNA polymerase to it, and out the other side comes RNA. And that RNA can be put on a cell culture, and the cell culture will do all the same things that it did when you took the RNA out of a bat, except you got a lot more RNA. And you can take that RNA and you can put it in a mouse and it'll get sick, or put it in a monkey and it'll get sick. And we can make lots of it. And the best part is I can make some of that. I can send it to another lab around the world and they get the same results. And if I want to start again, I can go back to the DNA and make some more RNA, or I can grow more DNA in my bacteria and then make more RNA. And we can keep coming back to the same sequence that I found 4 years ago. And I would never be able to do that if I had took that RNA and tried to culture it in dishes and make it grow more and more. It would go away. And so that's the point. You can't get RNA into your lungs and have it grow and grow, and then you spit it all over your family and all over your school. That's not how it works. However, if they wanted to convince the world and all the molecular biologists that have their head in the sand that they found the same sequence in Wuhan and in Iran and in Washington and in Italy. And even more importantly, they wanted all the molecular biologists that did the tests to find that result. All they'd have to do is make the sequence. We've been able to make DNA for a couple decades. It's become cheaper than ever. It's one of the things all these TED Talk people always say, that it's exponentially decreasing and soon it's going to be so cheap to do everything. Just because you can make a copy of a Chinese book doesn't mean you can read Chinese. And faster you can make a copy of the book still doesn't mean you can read Chinese. And if you can make 1,000 copies of the Chinese book, it still doesn't mean you can read Chinese. And so even though they can make more and more and more copies of DNA and read it faster and faster and faster, we still don't know shit about it. And so if they wanted to, they could put this DNA in your house and it would be there for a year or two, because DNA is super stable. And PCR would find it in a heartbeat if they looked for it. One of the best examples I found in the literature of this, I won't be able to pull it up right now, but there was a paper that was trying to find coronavirus in other animals somewhere in Maine or something like that. And they were testing all these animals and they found a bunch of positives. And then they ran a control of the floor of the laboratory and it was hot. And so then they decided to retract the paper because it turned out that all of those samples were contaminated by the floor. And how did it get contaminated? Because their control was a DNA copy of the spike protein. And they had a huge quantity of it in the laboratory. So everything was contaminated with the DNA of the spike. And so wherever they did the sequencing, they found it. Wherever they put the antibodies, they found it. And then finally they realized, oh, wait, all these animals aren't positive. Our technician didn't handle the control well enough. And of course, DNA is very stable. So there would be enormous numbers of very easy ways without magic technology, without a lot of fancy military ops to put some either DNA or RNA in these places. And if they wanted to, the Snohomish County man in Washington, the first official patient in America that just happened to have culturable virus, just happened to come into the hospital and leave and no one ever talked to him, just happened to be back from Wuhan, Chinese guy who still haven't seen him, don't know his name, happened to provide the sample that they made monoclonal antibodies from, that they got the sequence for the spike protein, all of the things.
No one knows who that guy is, patient 0?
Nobody does. But he provided a perfect sample with the exact same sequence that was found in Wuhan and exactly this, and it was culturable, and it's the sequence that they used to make, or the supposedly the sample from which all of the coronavirus control that's provided by the CDC is sent out from. If you were a lab and you wanted a sample of the original Wuhan virus, they claim to be still giving you virus that they're growing from the Snohomish County man. How they're really doing it is that they're making it. They made a DNA copy of it a long time ago and they generate the RNA from it. I would stand in front of a train and knowing that's true, the train would disappear. I mean, that's really how sure I am.
Why won't they tell us who patient 0 is?
Well, they told us it's some guy from Wuhan. They
I know. I want to see him.
Yeah, there was no pictures of him or anything like that. I think he went into the hospital with a scratchy throat. And the story is really silly.
So would that Augustus Link, this guy is smart. I'm going to have to come back and watch this 30 times to understand what he is saying. It's a lot of information. It's like one of those pictures where you got to connect the dots that little kids, but it's got so many fucking dots. So you can piece the story together.
I think the most important thing, because everybody's got a piece. Everybody has a feeling that they've lied to us about something. If you think that they've lied to us about Bill Clinton, or you think they lied to us about the Bushes, or you think, what you have to get your head around is that they've lied to us about almost everything. And so if bioterrorism was a real thing and pandemics were a real thing, we would not have gotten to 7 billion people on the planet. We would never have had billions or millions of bison roaming the plains of the United States for as long as they did. There wouldn't be these huge pictures of these.
I heard the dinosaurs died from COVID.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Jay, so does that mean that all the people who died from it
were killed?
Yeah.
I
So,
think that they
so
actually,
there's three ways. There's three ways. They killed them with improper treatment, which isn't implausible since, we know the top three leading causes of death in the United States are medical, malpractice. But they were either killed or they were misdiagnosed, meaning like these are the people who died in car accidents who are being we were told they were dying of COVID. I mean, we know there's some crazy shit. Like in Santa Clara County, they took off like 33% of the people that supposedly died from COVID. They eventually took them off the list. They're like, oops, they didn't die from COVID. So you think that all that was just a psyop and then people being killed?
Especially in New York City. I think New York City is the one that everybody really needs to look back on. In New York City, in 4 weeks, 24,000 people supposedly died. And then it stopped. So we don't know where those bodies are. They showed us pictures of trucks and stuff, and they showed us some wooden boxes, but 24,000 bodies is a lot of bodies. Then it went back to zero. And so it didn't spread to New Jersey. It didn't go to other places. A week later, it was New York. It was a couple hospitals. Those people are not listed. We don't know who they are. There's not a memorial for them. And nobody wants to talk about the fact that it happened like a bomb. I mean, 24,000 people in 4 weeks, and normal before and normal after. And what they did was they showed us that rise in those 4 weeks. And then they showed us all kinds of projections off of that rise. And those projections never came true, but nobody cared. We were never shown. I think New York City is the example. And the thing that we have recently uncovered, and I would be great if you could take this and run with it in the coming weeks. But one of the things that nobody seems to be wanting to talk about now that we've found it is that early on in the pandemic, we were not aware of how nasty this is, but everybody was using a pulse oximeter.
Yeah.
And pulse oximeters were being used as an excuse to go into the emergency room. If it's FLCCC's website said, if it's below 94%, you should go to the hospital, which is a pretty extraordinary thing because, again, out of shape, fat, lazy, unhealthy people, we don't know what their average pulse ox is. We weren't looking at it. We don't know how much it varies per day. And crazy enough, are you aware that giving someone who doesn't need it supplemental oxygen can actually be really, really bad?
I have heard that.
And so we did that as a standard thing. When people came in with low pulse ox, the first thing we did was give them oxygen. Oxygen can be very painful. It can dry out your lungs. It can cause all kinds of other problems, which can lead to symptoms which look a lot like pneumonia. And a lot of people, in order to alleviate the pain of high flow oxygen through your nose, they were offered sedation and ventilation. And so a lot of the people, I think, that were on-ramped into bad protocols were started by saying, well, if you came into the hospital, we don't have enough vents, but we can give you some oxygen. And that is bad. Very, very bad. And I don't think enough people are talking about it because, it was panicked residents. It was scared residents. And they were told that it makes sense if you're I don't know, rushed into telling. I mean, look, their pulse ox says they have no oxygen. Let's give them oxygen. But that's generally speaking not the right answer, apparently. And yet that was the answer we were using for a very long time. And that could be a way that people were ventilated, a way that people ended up getting midazolam or remdesivir or any of the other things that they were given. I don't think you can underestimate how many people have been mishandled and ended up being killed. And I don't think that there is any reason to start with the idea that the vast majority of people weren't killed. I think they were, because if the 24,000 people that died in New York City were killed by a virus, then something should have happened in New Jersey or somewhere else right after that. It should have moved around. And that's what Denny Rancourt and a couple other people. Denny Rancourt is a guy from Canada who's done a lot of research on the all-cause mortality. And he can even show counties in America that have huge disparities like that, where a little bomb went off over here, but this county is free of any death. And so it does really seem like that where hospitals were convinced, and it often segregates with like these large management things like Kaiser or whatever, or if you, I don't know what they're, all these hospital owner corporations that own hospitals, that tends to be how these protocols were enforced. And so if you go to independent hospitals or hospitals that aren't managed by those bigger companies, you tend to find again that the death rate was much lower. And it's probably because these kinds of protocols weren't enforced. And so, yeah, I think we're at a stage where when people say that the Department of Defense was involved and that the United States government was involved, I think you really have to come to terms with the fact that these tabletop exercises have identified the problem of compliance. For years and years, they've identified that when we have this problem, the main issue is we got to get as many people to comply as possible. And so let's just imagine that they thought that the worst case scenario was possible. And so that they needed the first hit in the United States to be significant enough so that everybody would take it seriously. And so they kind of orchestrated a few mass casualty events that could be used to really warn everyone that the worst case scenario was possible. And why not New York City? New York City has been, ground zero for all of these operations. And so New Yorkers have been sort of already pre-trained. And so I'm afraid that it's very dark right now.
And we know also on the superficial level, thanks to stuff I've seen James O'Keefe do, we saw the one of the high-level executives, producers over at CNN with a hidden camera saying, hey, yeah, we were always pumping the numbers and we were always trying to make it scary because that's what got us the highest ratings. And we already have our next project in line. Soon as the pandemic goes away, we're going to start focusing on deaths caused by climate change because we know that drives numbers. And then O'Keefe said, hey, don't you feel bad if that's not true? Or whoever was wearing the mic on him. And he goes, yeah, we're definitely doing more harm than good with our reporting. And I was like, holy shit. And those are people who aren't even aware at the level that you're talking. You're giving the 100,000 foot view. This guy's at the 100-foot view, but he's just complacent with it in order to keep his job and make money.
Yeah, I mean, I really think they feel that they are part of a governing structure. You know, they're auditioning for a higher level in the governing elite, and so all of these people are playing for a higher role in the illusion. And I didn't see it that way from the beginning, but I definitely see it that way now. We are in a situation where the emperor has no clothes, so to speak. We can see that the American government now, unfortunately, I love my country and I'm fighting for our republic with all of my might. But we have to first acknowledge that our country has been out of our control for a lot longer than a few years. And these people have been governing us with stories and mythologies for a long, long time. And the worst case scenario is that the entire vaccine schedule is essentially bunk, and that, you know, we probably only need 3 shots and we can get them at 2 or 3 years old. And that was probably it.
Which shots would you say if you were to say there's shots? Because I don't think you should take any, but what
I don't think you should take any either, but it strikes me as possibly like the measles shot, for example, is possibly because the measles virus is an interesting virus because it has its structure seems to suggest to me that unlike these other RNA illusions, I think the measles virus, I'm not really sure how to explain it. It's just a gut feeling. It's a gut feeling because my real feeling is that it would be better for you to get measles than for you to take the measles vaccine. Right. And I'm still very I'm trying to be very humble and hesitant to just scream all these things out, because I do think that if this is the direction that the truth is in, then we're going to go there, and we need to go there in a very controlled and because it's going to be a huge move for all of us to understand that we've been lied to that extent.
Let me ask you this real quick. So at any point, right, if I tell you, I have let's say I have the cure to quitting smoking, and it's totally benign and safe, but there's a million people who need to quit smoking. So I give you this, and I know that the total, just for lack of, just to make it easy, the total number of days that people lose of life every year from these million people, let's say, is they lose 5 million days of life, meaning they die, as an aggregate, they die 5 million days sooner than the other people. Let's just say for ease. Now, but then when I give those pills to people, those million people, just because people choke on the pill when they drink the water, it kills so many people that it does 10 million days of reduction of life on Earth, right? So now the cure, just because of its implementation, kills more people or reduces the number of days people are on the planet than if you just like, hey, recommend they quit. I also think that there's a lot of that shit that people like can't even comprehend. Like, what if you, and we saw that with the polio vaccine. I mean, first of all, I think it's the polio vaccine's horseshit anyway, but there were 150,000 people just in one cohort who were actually, they thought they were taking the vaccine and they were fucking being given polio. And it's like, and then the other thing that, so basically that concerns me, just the fact that people don't think about that: broken needles, bad batches, poor execution on it. And then the other thing that concerns me is the thing with taking vaccines is that they alter your immune system forever. So you have this perfect baby that's capable of fighting off of everything, and then you give them this, and so there's no there, and because everyone's taking it, we have no baseline study. We don't know. Is that true that once you start fucking with the immune system, you've altered it forever?
I really should just back up a little bit and say that what your viewers just heard 10 minutes ago is still me struggling to accept it.
Right. Okay.
Because
I struggle to accept it too.
I worked with CHD. I worked with CHD for half a year. I worked with Bobby Kennedy for a year.
What's CHD?
Children's Health Defense. And that's one of the bigger, anti-vaccine groups, or I wouldn't call it an anti-vaccine group. It's just a group that really wants health freedom and people to make their own choices about things, and they understand that vaccines injure people, and a lot of the people that are in that group are parents of kids that are injured. And so it's still taking me a while as a biologist to say it correctly. So on my stream, I always say that intramuscular injection of any combination of substances with the intent of augmenting the immune system is dumb. And the reason why I say it is because all of our vaccines now are intramuscular, and any vaccine that had any effectiveness in history, the ones that they were doing at that time were all in the skin, or oral. And so from a broad armchair immunologist perspective, augmenting the immune system by exposing your skin to something, or augmenting the immune system by taking something orally, is not crazy, because you want to expose the epithelial cells of your gut or the epithelial cells of your skin to something so that the immune system learns to deal with it. That, in theory, doesn't sound crazy to me. It doesn't. It also could potentially, of course, go wrong, but it's very, very different than intramuscular injection. And I think people need to think more carefully about what intramuscular injection is, and think about how many things do you really need to take that way. Because the idea of, again, augmenting your immune system with an intramuscular injection is absurd. And I really, when I say a vaccine for measles, I mean immunizing to measles. And what I would mean is, if you had a immunization to measles that was based in the skin, or immunization into measles that you could take orally, and it was essentially measles proteins or something like that. I don't agree with adjuvants. So adjuvants are these toxic chemicals that are paired with the proteins, and they're just designed to irritate your immune system so that your immune system comes and takes action. And then you hope that somehow those toxins aren't at high enough concentration to hurt you, or they don't go in your brain, or your liver takes them out easily, and we just don't care. So I don't agree with those kinds of vaccines. But again, when you asked me that question, I was already kind of struggling to find the right way to say it correctly so as to not offend everyone. But in reality, we need to be very precise and say that right now, the stuff that they're offering us as vaccines, we shouldn't take any of it. And I applaud you for saying it before I did, because I'm trying to say it on my stream all the time, but you can also trip over your own whatever if you try hard to, sugarcoat it or I don't know, sort of ease people into the idea, where really you can't really ease anybody into the idea that this entire methodology has essentially been misrepresented as effective, and they all know it, and that's why they don't want strict liability for any of these products, because then they'd be responsible for all the damage they do.
There's this when the baby is born. And I apologize. This is not going to be true what I'm going to tell you guys, but the spirit of what I'm saying is true. When your baby is born, one of the things they offer you is they want to start pricking your baby's heel, and they want to start taking blood samples to see if your baby is missing some sort of ability to metabolize some sort of proteins.
Correct.
And I don't know, but they do a lot of pricks. It's like 9 different pricks or something that they do on a baby if your baby's like born in a traditional hospital or something. And so I started, and then if they find that your baby's missing, if it's important to find if your baby's missing that ability to process that protein, because if they don't, in 3 months they'll be dead and you won't see any symptoms of it. All of a sudden the baby just dies. So I looked up the number of cases of that happening in California, and it was like it was less than 1 in 500,000. So at that point, I'm just like, okay, that one was probably an error. I don't even trust that, right? So I'm like, okay. So then I see that, and then I quickly go, are there any studies that what it affects a baby to prick their heel? And I can't remember. There were none, but there was a mouse study where they pricked the mouse's heel, one of his feet. That mouse had like 1/1000th the number of nerve endings in that foot, or too many, I can't remember, but the feet develop differently on the mice from those pricks. And so when they ask me, do you want to do these tests on my baby? I quickly just use my own discernment. I'm like, do I want my baby's development of his foot changed because of 9 pricks that are done in the first 36 hours of his life, or do I roll the dice? And I decide to roll the dice. And there's 1,000 decisions to make like that when your baby is born. But there are some really, but it only takes 5 minutes to look it up. So the measles one was easy for me. I looked it up, and the 10 years prior to the measles vaccine coming out, only like 500 or 1,000 kids were dying a year. And at that point, I know just from my own discernment that could be noise, that they don't even really know if those kids died from measles or not. I don't know if that kid had some other complication. Like I don't trust that. I need a really big number. I need it like, hey, if I jump off a building, head down, I'm going to die. Then I'll be like, okay, that's bad. That's 99,999 out of 100,000 people die. And I just don't understand why it's not rocket science to me. I don't need to know about p-values, or if they tell me the average age of death of someone who dies with COVID is 82 years old and they have 4 more comorbidities, and then I see that the average age of death with people without COVID in the same cohort is 80 years old, then the whole thing's a wash. And that's the part that and I've talked about it ad nauseum on the show. I don't get why people don't trust their own, just a little bit of their own discernment. You can even go back and read about the polio vaccine and the moth and the iron lung, and you can be like, the
polio vaccine is especially incredible because it is so correlated with the use of DDT that it's almost laughable. I mean, it's really at that stage you almost have to assume that in order to cover up all the damage they did by the use of DDT, they said there was a polio epidemic. And I mean, it's extraordinary to me.
And really. What's crazy too is, they pulled the first vaccine after a year and a half. It was doing so much fucking damage. They fucking pulled it. And the other thing that was crazy, the thing about polio and tetanus that tripped me out is you can't, that can't be exposed to oxygen for even a second. Like that has to go straight into your fucking bloodstream in order to get it. And so our gut, a healthy gut, is littered with that, whatever they call it, some poliococcus thing. But if you have a healthy gut, it doesn't get to your bloodstream and you're good to go. I mean, I have no scientist in me or any biologist in me, but I can comprehend that.
Yeah, I think that one of the truths that is coming out now, and that it's also very they're very keen to control it. But you being a guy of CrossFit and all these other people, you guys are probably a lot more aware, or were more aware of the connection with health and the gut, a lot more than the average people were, and certainly more than I was. And even as a neuroscientist, it has only become in the last, let's say, as a neurobiologist, in the last 5 or so years, has it become very interesting, the connection between the rest of the body and the brain, and specifically the digestive system. But even that, the progress of the understanding is still hampered by the specialties of all these people, because they're only interested in the brain connection to the gut under their own very specific pretenses, not in the grand scheme of human health. And so it's very difficult to get people in academia to integrate across all of these ideas and to answer big questions. But people in nutrition and people in athletics and in health have been doing it for much longer. And so one of the things for everyone to consider is this concept that it is possible. I'm just throw this out there when you think about it, and you can think about it for weeks actually, that a lot of these narratives about the ailments of modern life, Alzheimer's disease, Crohn's disease, all of these explanations for what happened are really mealy-mouthed explanations, when what they're trying to do is find an explanation that has nothing to do with bacteria. And why I find that really important is because even at the beginning of the pandemic, one of the sort of arguments that started very early was that, wait, we have bacteria in our lungs, we have bacteria in our guts. And so one of the discussions that got tramped very early was, there are known, for sure, there are RNA phages, so viruses that go between bacteria. And so one of the questions that I found very intriguing very early on in the pandemic, that just went away as quickly as it came up, was, how do we differentiate a spreading RNA phage, so something that's going through our bacteria, so it could be replicating in the bacteria of our gut, the bacteria of our mouth, the bacteria of our lungs, rather than replicating in our own cells? And would we be able to tell the difference with a PCR test? And the answer, no, we wouldn't be able to tell the difference. So that concept is already very interesting, because that's a whole level of ecology that we never think about, that if we get an RNA phage that goes through our gut bacteria, we could have a sickness from that would manifest exactly the same as flu, because our microbiome is very important. I don't know if anybody in your audience is aware of it or not, but your intestines have organs along next to them that are kind of related to lymph nodes that are called Peyer's patches. And Peyer's patches are places where the bacteria of your gut actually interact directly with the lymph system. So the lymph system is, again, if you're unaware, the lymph system is this alternative, not water-based, but lipid-based circulation system. And that's where all of your immune systems go around in, and immune system cells go around in. And you can't absorb fats out of your gut into your blood, because fats don't dissolve in your blood. So your fats and all the lipids that you absorb are absorbed into the lymph. And so that means actually that the lymph is not just an immune system carrier, but it's actually carrying nutrition and raw materials around your body that are absorbed through your gut. Now, what happens at the Peyer's patches is almost exactly the opposite of what happens in your skin or in your lungs, because there the immune system is supposed to let all of these materials pass without making a reaction to them. And so you are building T cell memory to the things that go through your gut, so that you have T cells which can turn off and regulate the immune response to the things that pass through your gut. And what we have just started to discover, And of course, bacteriologists already knew this, but bacteria release proteins. They die. They need to be cleaned up. And that process requires an intimate interaction between your immune system and those bacteria so that your immune system doesn't kill them. We have to tolerate those bacteria. And in fact, every night when you go to bed, those bacteria move into the Peyer's patches and interact directly with your immune system. Now, that's part of the reason why a leaky gut would be awful. That's part of the reason why a leaky blood-brain barrier would be awful, because these barriers are where the immune system does its job. And so if they're leaky, then all kinds of things can pass through and not get sort of processed by the immune system. And so when you are sick, one of the things to realize is that the immune system response that's generated in your lungs is an inflammatory response, but it's opposed by the tolerance response in your gut. So you cough up the RNA in your lungs. It's in your mucus. The mucus protects the RNA as it goes through your stomach so that it can avoid the acid of your stomach and get down to the Peyer's patches where the immune system can say, hey, we're going to build some T cells to some of these leftover RNA or these leftover foreign proteins. And then those T cells go into the lymph circulation and actually oppose the inflammatory T cells from the lungs. And so just as the inflammatory cells of the lungs are ramping up the inflammation, the cells in the gut are responding to the leftover proteins that are going down into the gut and building tolerant T cells to those. And it is the interaction between the activated cells at the infection site and the tolerant cells in the gut that cause the crescendo and decrescendo of the sickness. So when you vaccinate someone, you have no T cells that are organized in this way. And instead, you have random T cells encountering these proteins and these toxins being activating dendritics. It's just a random thing. And the immune system needs this compartmentalization in order to process the whole memory. And so
this takes us back to the intramuscular thing, as opposed to just the natural process of how the body needs to become. It's like filing a book away somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Has to hand it to the librarian, and she has to put it in the right spot. This is like it's not going through the right process.
Exactly.
Hey, this process, this sort of I guess process that you're talking about, are babies doing this the second they're born? Is this something the body comes out capable of doing? Do you know?
I think that actually breastfeeding is designed to give a window for this. So when the baby comes out, I think the baby is still processing self T cells. So the T cells are still going through the spleen, and it's a killing factory. Basically, any T cells that recognize proteins of your own are killed. And that process is happening after birth as well. And so I think the idea is that maternal immunity is passed through the breast milk, while the final process of establishing the basis for acquired immunity, and then at some point that starts. I don't know exactly when.
It would be fascinating to know when the baby does it. Pat, back to polio. Polio was killing people at a pretty high clip in the early 1900s. DDT wasn't available commercially until 1945. They were using lead arsenic before DDT.
No, I still think that the polio virus is real. I just think that when they weren't cleaning the water well enough, when people weren't washing their hands, there was a big sanitation thing that occurred then.
Right. But what he's saying is they were spraying. So,
well, they weren't using DDT because DDT is just, it's all part of the same thing. DDT was probably causing leaky gut. It was probably causing immune suppression, which enabled an existing polio to occur.
But what he's saying is people were dying. The reason why people let me just go back. According to this book that I saw, Moth in the Iron Lung, it was during the Civil War, Pat. And basically what happened was during the Civil War, we were having an issue with making cotton. Moth in the Iron Lung. We were having issues making cotton to make uniforms for the soldiers. So what ended up happening was these biologists somewhere in New England, they started bringing caterpillars or worms from Europe to make silk, and they were looking to breed the perfect silkworm. They escaped from the lab and they started decimating crops. And the writings on it are amazing. They're saying in these small towns in New England, you would go to bed at night and you would wake up in the morning and everything would be defoiled. The entire fucking town overnight would be defoiled. Like you look around and every leaf on every tree is gone. So basically it became law, and this is before 1900s, to spray everything with DDT and with lead arsenic. And at this
No
time,
way.
Yes, that's the premise of that book. And so everything was sprayed, and basically that fucking started destroying everyone's gut. And that's what caused the leaky gut. And then they pivoted to DDT, which was no better. So then eventually, first Europe made lead arsenic illegal, and then they made it illegal in the United States. And basically 2 years before the polio vaccine came out, when they made it illegal to spray DDT and lead arsenic on food, or I think it was that, 2 years prior to that, the polio cases plummeted, polio deaths plummeted. So it started off with lead.
I got this book. It's not even cracked open yet.
So did Briggs's wife recommend it to you?
I think so, yeah. I don't remember why I ordered it, but I just ordered it.
It'll freak you out because
a lot of people have been telling me about it.
It's the exact same playbook. It goes into the detailed history of the whole thing. It's the exact same playbook as COVID, like to the T. And yeah, so there's
it's I don't know how to say it any other way, but I'm very convinced that they need us to feel helpless, and they need us to want help, and we don't need it. It's just unfortunate because in reality, what they've done is they've taken, when we were kids, Sivan, I can remember my Phi Ed teacher was this, well, it doesn't matter. I had a really good Phi Ed teacher, and he used to always say, I think he was gay, but no one ever really knew because you didn't talk about that when I was a kid. You know, it didn't matter what.
Well, when we were kids, all the smartest people were gay.
Sure.
Now it's not like that. But I remember they were the nicest, the cleanest, the wealthiest.
Yeah. And anyway, this guy was great. And he used to tell everybody all the time, your body's a temple. All you got to do is think about your body as a temple. What you put in, you get out. And the better stuff you put in, you know, it's just, why would you put anything less in this? And that whole concept is inverted if you tell a kid that, well, you might need surgery or drugs to fix what's wrong with you. It's exactly the inversion of what we were taught when we were kids. That you're perfect just the way you are.
Right.
It's really crazy.
By the way, it looks like there was a big earthquake in New York that just happened.
What?
Yeah, it says 4.8 and then 5.5, depending on who you're.
Oh
an
my
earthquake
God.
with preliminary magnitude of 5.5 struck North Plainfield, New Jersey, Friday morning. It's today Friday?
Today is Friday. Wow, it is Friday.
Yeah, 4.7 magnitude earthquake rattles New York City. Surrounding region said the quake was centered near White House Station, New Jersey, 40 miles west of New York City, according to the U.S. Geological Survey. That's a big uns.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a nice one. Is New York known for earthquakes?
I don't think so.
And then, of course, it says below 75% of the United States could be facing mass damage from quakes in the next 100 years. Of course I can.
Oh my gosh, it's going to be quakes. Interesting.
Hey, what's your thought when you think of all of these papers that are out there now that are bullshit, you know, all of these editors and CEOs of some of the biggest medical journals, science journals in the world are like, hey, you have to come to our journal, basically presuming that what you're reading is not replicatable and is not true. It's gotten that bad. People are saying it's just a complete mess. And then we have this thing called AI that's going through and harvesting all of this information to give people advices, knowledge, wisdom, not wisdom, process. So the AI is just I mean, obviously it's inherently corrupt ideologically, but it's also corrupt. The AI is just it's useless, right? In terms of data.
Absolutely.
Medical data. It's just.
I mean, we have to just be careful and make sure we say it correctly. I mean, let's take the example of what Neuralink just did. where they
Okay.
showed this this paraplegic guy who could play a game with his mind.
Okay.
How that was almost certainly done is the same way they do brain-mind interface in a monkey. What they would have done is they put the implant in his head, and then for a couple weeks, he moved the mouse with his mouth, just like he moved the mouse with his mouth before they had the implant in him, because that's how he interacted with a computer. He's quadriplegic.
Right.
So he had a thing in his mouth, and he moved it around. When they teach a monkey to do this, they put the implant in his head, and then they have the monkey move the joystick. And then at some point in time, the monkey is moving the joystick, and he's moving this thing on the screen. At some point in time, they just bolt his hand down. And if he thinks about moving his hand and struggles against the bolt, the thing still moves. And so the monkey is then able to learn how, well, I don't even really need to move my hand very much. I just have to think about moving my hand, and then it works. And so the exact same thing happened with this guy. They put a recording in his head, and then they said, okay, now move the mouse with your mouth. And they let him do that for a couple weeks, and the computer just listened. Every time he moved it to the left, it heard something else than when he moved it to the right. And over time, the average of that signal is high enough so that when they stop him moving it, they can read that signal and understand where he wants to move the mouse. But that is so many orders of magnitude away from understanding either what his brain says, or being able to put anything back into his brain. That none of those things are even approached in this what is essentially a magician's trick.
I was gonna say it's more like magic than it's an illusion.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we already knew we could do this. I mean, we've done it before. If they wanted to make it a thing where you could wear a baseball cap that transcranially monitored your neocortex so you could move your mouse, they could sell you that in 6 months. Everybody could have one of those. That's not a big deal. What they're trying to do is take that technology and make you think that technology represents the first stage in mind control and the first stage in mind reading. It's just not. I mean, we have the ability to record from hundreds of thousands of neurons with these Neuralinks probes and these other things that can go all the way through the brain and record from thousands of neurons at every point on the length of them. And they still have not been able to make sense of anything in a rodent brain. So the concept that we can we'll just start doing this in humans, it's just a really bad trick that they're trying to, again, encourage everybody to go limp. And think that there are all these people that are going to have this elite technology, and it's just not there. I mean, you can even talk. One of the more practical things to think about is just to go talk to the average academic biologist who's still hard at work in their laboratory that puts an implant in a monkey or puts implants in mice, and ask them how often they have trouble with infection or how often the animal bumps it in such a way that ruins their recording. And so now think you're going to have something put under your skull and everything's going to be fine. There's not going to be any infection or any growth or any immune response 10 years later, 5 years later. These are all giant assumptions that, with regard to a quadriplegic who's happy to get attention and happy to be a test subject, is very different than confounding that with something that eventually every teenager is going to have. I mean, come on, it's obviously a show, but for some reason or another, all of these people, the same way they have agreed to agree about COVID, they all agree that very soon there's going to be this singularity and man and machine are going to merge. And it's absurd. It's not even, we're not even remotely close to that.
Well, that's good news.
I really believe this. I'm not trying to assuage any fears unrealistically. I really think that they are grossly overplaying their hand. It's like 10 years ago when they were saying that within 10 years we're going to be using retroviruses to cure every childhood genetic disorder. And we're no closer to that than we were when they announced that the Human Genome Project was completed in 2000 whatever. And that's because the Human Genome Project being completed was not even what they said it was. Essentially, when they completed the human genome, what they had done was made a general map of a of a national park. And so they made a general map of a national park, but not a specific map of a general park. So that what they did was every national park has a main gate, and every national park has several trailheads, and every national park has a game area. Every national park has a campground, and every national park has a restroom and a ranger station. And so we know where all these things are on one human genome, and we know we should look for all of these things in another human genome. And a lot of things that we're interested in are near the restroom, and some of the things that we're interested in are near the ranger station. But other than that, they didn't know a whole lot. And in reality, what the Human Genome Project's completion allowed all of them to justify is that we need everyone's genome. We need every genome possible, because the only way we're going to crack it is the same way we crack the game Go, or the way that we cracked chess. We cracked chess by watching and understanding lots and lots of games, and then the AI saw patterns that it could use to solve the puzzle. Go was just a very much harder version of the same thing. They took this machine and made it play lots of games until it was reasonably good, but the whole has already been shown, right? A human that plays a little bit silly for the first few moves can crush that AI, because the AI can't deal with silly moves for a little while, where a human can. But still, the illusion is that AI, given enough data, can do a bunch of things. The illusions that they show you are things like, well, if we take 40 radiologists and we use their expertise to train an AI, then after they train the AI, those 25 radiologists are actually slightly less accurate than the AI. And so, wow, look at AI is about to become conscious. And that's just ridiculous. That
is ridiculous.
And that's the same basic trick, right, that they did with the guy with the paraplegic. They don't tell you that they had to train the AI first before this would work. They had to train the machine learning model. And so all of these things are this trick where, without the trainer, without the expert to show the AI what the radiology results should look like, or what the MRI should look like, then the AI would be lost. So all of these things are misrepresenting what's actually going on. And I think this disingenuousness will eventually be their downfall, because they're not getting anywhere, because again, their models make certain predictions that are not going to come true. And that's what, if we go all the way back to the broken science thing and how much that's been important to me, that's the little nugget that I'm now saying all the time, that when you look at and you listen to someone talk, what you should be trying to build in your head is, what model of reality are they imposing on me as they talk? What model of reality am I being made to accept by asking the question they're making me ask? So if they get you to argue about lab leak, the model of the world is that there are viruses, they go around.
You have to make some presuppositions. That's like interviewing people. The follow-up question is always where the real good stuff is. It's never the question.
Mm-hmm. And what
do they got you to presuppose? And that's the thing why people are always telling me, they're like, hey, fuck the right, fuck the left. It's just one thing trying to control both sides.
Yes, it is. It's wonderful, though, when you start to see it. And that's really what the gift that Greg gave me this last time was, to see that what I have to ask as a scientist is, what model is being proposed by this rhetoric or by this question? And are they actually testing the model, or are they just making you accept it? And that's what Rand Paul and Tony Fauci arguing in the Senate did. They made you accept that there was a virus, and it was only a question of whether it was natural or man-made. And that whole argument was making you accept that model of reality. And by thinking, oh, I got to choose a side on this argument, you have accepted the whole story already. It was a magic trick.
Yeah. Should cars be run on gas or with water? And then all of a sudden, like, okay, the people who are building highways are excited because they win no matter what.
Yeah, maybe that's a good example. I mean, electric cars.
I'm just trying to think of something more mundane. Yeah, electric cars, whatever. But basically, at that point, the guy who's building the highways is happy, because I've got you fighting about what cars what's going to propel.
I mean,
cars.
think electric cars. We've always what presupposition did all of us accept for the first 5 years of electric cars? That electric cars don't pollute as much as our cars. Right. But that's bullshit, because to make their frickin' batteries, they pollute crazy amounts of water and crazy amounts of earth. It's just not here. and when their batteries blow up or when they need to be replaced. So all of these things that we were led to believe were presuppositions that were assumed as long as we participated in their discussion. Obviously, electric cars don't pollute. There's no smoke coming out of them.
Right.
So that's a really wonderful thing.
And they don't make noise.
Yeah, they don't make noise.
Jay, let me ask you this. This is I'm going to take you into this abstract realm here. Is this how we're behaving as humans as a totality in our space right now, our biology? Meaning, will this happen no matter what, even though like there's people who are trying to share deeper ways of seeing things, or what they call being red pilled, or what they call seeing the getting out of the matrix. But at some level, is there our biology that, like, no matter what, it's like Legos. Everything at the bottom is Legos. It's a Lego pyramid. And at the top, it's just the way it will always be. It's nothing nefarious. It's no Illuminati shit. It's just like, hey, our biology is that we're survival of the fittest, and there's always going to be someone sort of climbing to the top. Like, it's just the way it is.
I can't argue with that. I mean, we are I think the most I guess spectacular thing that I can say that I've learned, and how I'm trying to think of it, is that it's a multi-generational game that they are playing, and they want us to believe it's like a 6-week game.
Yeah, that part's hard for me to believe. It's multi-generational. Because but here's the thing: when I see that, then they're less, because I think of them as sorry for doing that, as being extremely selfish and just being concerned with what they can have right now. Why do they give a fuck what happens when they die and what their kids get? They don't seem to give a shit about that.
Well, if you listen to Ray Kurzweiler, for example, he was just on Rogan a little while ago. He's like credited with all kinds of big ideas and AI and everything else. Ray Kurzweiler says that and I mean this, he said this 3 days ago, all disease in humans will be cured by 2040. So all he has to do is live to around 2035, and then he'll be immortal. He actually said that. He thinks that we are really close to cracking all of these problems. And so, you know, if it's uploading his consciousness to the web or whatever it is, he thinks that that's coming so soon that he's not going to die. He's telling those stories.
Wow.
So these people are already kind of thinking in this macabre way. And so I don't think of it like they're planning on passing along the rule to their kids. I really think that they have been, for 20 or so years, led to believe that something really wonderful is about to happen, and they still believe it. And they still believe that if they stick to this, you know, commitment in this secret group or whatever it is, that they're going to be rewarded when it finally does happen.
And then here's the thing, and then someone's controlling. That's what I mean. So then that's just the next layer, but someone's actually controlling those people by giving them that dream.
Absolutely. I think
it's just
very possible.
It's just like the people who think they're manipulating are also being manipulated. So let me tell you one of the places where I've acquiesced.
Okay.
I am not a Christian. And I spent my whole life like thinking like, these fucking idiots, why do they do this? Why do they do that? Why do they do this? And then all of a sudden I realized, wow, I actually, if I look at them without that judgment, I'm like, my values actually really align with these people. These people actually make great neighbors. These people actually, whether I think they're awake or asleep or not, let's say they're all asleep and they're in the matrix and they're all NPCs, but they, like ants that harvest aphids, I want to be around these people because my life is enriched there. So instead of trying to wake them up from their, instead of like trying to maybe show them like, hey, maybe it's like this, I just live amongst them in peace because they mow their lawns. They're maybe behind closed doors they're into pedophilia, but openly they're against it. They you know what I mean? They want people driving the right speed limit. They want drugs to be illegal so my kids don't get hooked on fentanyl. Like so part of me is like, hey, like it's cool. Like Sevi, stop fighting these motherfuckers. This is the army. just blend with this fucking crowd. These are it's like a fish that's it's like sometimes you see a bird flying with the wrong group. You know what I mean? So like I'm kind of like, hey, maybe I'm just gonna swim with these fuckers. Like this, I like this group.
I do. I have a, if you have a minute, I have,
please.
I have a little story because
and Greg woke me up to that too, by the way. Like, yo, dude, why are you fighting? Because I'd always be like, man, my sister said this, everything's a fucking Jesus said this, Jesus said that. He's like, dude, chill.
Yeah, I'm a recovering Catholic. My mom is a Filipino, so if Filipinos are Catholic, it's pretty militant. And so we went to church. We went to mass. I took it pretty seriously. And just to talk very frankly, I had a pretty abusive childhood that went off and on for a while until I was about 14. Not sexual, just physical. And so I prayed a lot. I had a relationship with God as a kid, and it was a Catholic thing. So all of my praying was done in church. I've read the Bible several times because if you go to mass 3 years in a row, you read the whole Bible. So I probably read the whole Bible a few times. And then I went off to college to a Catholic university and wasted a tremendous amount of money on student loans. And at that Catholic university kind of had a weird, I don't know if I didn't take Catholicism seriously or I more questioned the Catholic Church and a bunch of other things. And then after this, I had a girlfriend whose family was evangelistic Christian. And they went to this church called Willow Creek in Chicago, which is a very large, one of these prosperity gospel kind of places where you get together and sing and people cry and people are baptized when they're adults. And I'm just going to tell the whole story. It's really weird.
Yeah, please. We have plenty of time. I love it. I'm engaged.
The pastor of this place was Bill Hybel, and Bill Hybel was at the time an actual advisor to Bill Clinton. And he used to fly out there, and he was one of these religious leaders that Bill Clinton actually counseled with. And so he was this really, the whole family looked up to him. The whole church looked up to him. And I started going to church with them, and I did some, basically was exploring whether or not I could have a relationship with Christ the way that they did. And very quickly, I didn't feel it. And I don't really know how to express it other than to say that I was sufficiently infatuated with the girl that I went very deep and was very long allowing it to test it, so to speak. And I had gotten so far that I actually got up on stage in Willow Creek at some point and was baptized by Bill Hybel. The craziest part about this, and I'm just going to tell you because it's just what happened, when I was baptized, I wasn't baptized. I know I wasn't baptized because when Bill Hybel came over to me in front of all those people, I was on stage. He looked me in the eye, and I swear he knew that it wasn't happening. And he knew that I saw him. And what I saw in that guy was just a normal liar. And
I thought you were going to say a monster. I love that. Just a normal liar.
And so he put his hands on me like you do, but his fingers, his thumb did not touch my forehead. And when he looked at me, I swear the conversation was very clear. I know you know. And I said, yeah, I know. And I got off that stage and I told my girlfriend Molly at the time that I don't know what happened, but that didn't happen. That guy's not who he says he is. And I'm not going to this church anymore. And that was a really weird week. I don't even know how well I remember it because it was very soon after that we broke up for a lot of different reasons. But and then I kind of went into my own thing with God for a long time. And my grandma always said that, well, if you're worried about it, the only one who can answer the question is God. So the only way you're going to get an answer is pray. And that was something that my grandma told me when I was very young. And it might have even been my priest who said that, but whatever it was, it just became an inward thing. And I got married in Amsterdam at the town hall to a girl who was raised Catholic, but Firla is not religious at all. The last time that she was at mass was when we went to her grandmother's funeral. And so it's been very strange during the pandemic because I essentially came back to praying again, because I hit so many lows. And as a lot of people know, when you hit the lows of lows, a lot of times that's when you turn. And after 4 years, it's crazy that you mentioned this, but I'm now wearing a crucifix every day because I'm kind of back there. And it's not something that I put out there on my stream, but essentially I feel as though everything that is sacred about us as people has been attempted to take away from us. And at the heart of this is these little childhood things like your body is a temple, or you're perfect just the way you are, or these things come to me from my grandmother, who was a Lutheran Christian, but still a very good Christian. And one of these Christians that you're describing that isn't really outwardly, it's not something they wear on their t-shirt. It's not a flag they fly in their house. But it is something that motivates them. And in that sense, you can see it in their actions. And so I really feel as though my stream, if anything, is that relationship being expressed without actually saying it. And so I'm not ashamed to admit that I'm a Christian. I'm one that is so very not worthy of bringing anyone else there. I just hope that some of my actions belie it, I guess.
That's a great story, by the way. Thanks for sharing that. And this right here, things like this. So inalienable rights, something that is not transferable or that is impossible to take away. Every constitution provides for fundamental rights, which are inalienable rights. And then we go, what are the three inalienable rights found within the U.S. Constitution? It's liberty and the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And this is they are endowed by their creator with certain. Oh, Mom, look, I was saying it right. It can be inalienable or unalienable. My mom was slapping me around the other day. She's like,
"Oh, that's funny.
Listen, you jackass." We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men, like, this is to me, this is like, yeah, like that's why I want to be with people who think that, like, those are good people. Like I don't care about I'm willing to it's allowed me to respect people who are like pro-life.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have this wild pro-life guy on here once in a while, and even though I don't align with him, I admire the fuck out of him because his whole life is to save people from killing babies. Like, wow, what a noble, cool cause.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just more and more every day. I keep walking closer and closer. I just want to I want to just vanish into this crowd. I'm okay with this crowd. I'm okay with pumping energy in this crowd. But that being said, that takes us back to the other thing. Now we zoom out of this fun, fuzzy talk, and it's like, but now I'm not a Democrat. I'm a Republican.
Yeah, but you're not.
I get it, but I have someone sent me a Trump hat. Like I already know I'm voting for Trump. I
wish somebody would send me a Trump hat.
I'm not. It's just. I want the border closed. Like so many things that whether it's just an automated way of controlling this, so many ways of the way this. I guess I'm in a place. Maybe it's because I have kids, but I'm okay if I'm being controlled to some extent, in order to get some certain things back, some certain stability.
Yeah, but
if I believe the story, say it again.
Closing the borders isn't controlling you, though, right? I mean, I think what you should consider yourself or say you are is a patriot. You want America to be preserved and maybe even get back to a republic where.
But I'm a patriot for practical values. I'm not stupid. I'm not a 17-year-old boy who's like, hoorah. Like, I get it. That's fun. Like, you know what I mean? Like the national anthem doesn't make my skin tingle. I'm a patriot just for practical values. I don't think when I die, I'm taking any.
I would say that the team that I cheer for the most is the high school that my kid's going to go to. And in that sense, I'm patriotic.
Right.
I'm cheering for that home team. And I don't want the Pittsburgh community, for example, to be destroyed by immigrants. I don't want the Pittsburgh community to be destroyed by a public school system that's being run into the ground. I don't want
your kids. You don't want your kids sexualized.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't want to be told you have to wear a mask. You don't want to be forced to take. You don't want your kids, like my kids are in California. My kids are forced to take drugs in order to participate in the public school system.
Well, yeah, but you don't, right?
No.
Yeah, it's. I think we are in a situation.
But I pay taxes for that shit. Right. My kids can't go to it.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what to say. I mean, we really have every single person in America that can wake up is only the first step. I think we actually need. I mean, I don't even know if this will work, but in theory, if we could elect each other, something could change locally. And ultimately, this system is supposed to be the government that's closest to you should be the most powerful. So if we could take over our local governments and take over our state legislatures, it's probably irrelevant what they do in Washington in the long term, because they're going to go on in the show that they're going on with.
The money thing is crazy. Do you know about the Federal Reserve and that stuff?
Oh yeah, that's actually one of the things.
Getting into it. I'm like, holy shit! This is a scam. This isn't even like a complex scam.
No, it's really not. If you can write numbers in a book and I can't, then you have a lot of power. I don't. That's easy.
What a wild. I'm going further and further into it, but it's not very deep.
No, it's really not very deep, especially the part about you don't have to pay taxes. That part is actually really extraordinary. I don't know if you're aware, but it's completely voluntary for you to file taxes, and if you don't file taxes, the IRS can't process you. It's a voluntary participation. The actual IRS law says that the submission of your income tax and admission of how much you make is a voluntary thing. There are even videos of senators talking about how they do certain things to maintain the compliance in the voluntary system that is our income tax law.
Oh, that's interesting. Just like supposedly taking the injection was voluntary.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, men with guns can still come to your house, but technically if you go to trial and you say, hey, show me the law that says that I have to pay income tax, there is no law. What you should do is look up the movie America, Freedom to Fascism. Have you ever heard of this movie before?
No.
America, Freedom to Fascism is a movie that was made by the director of Trading Places.
Wow.
And he made that movie and then basically soon after, I think, was basically murdered. He's been connected to the big leagues for a very long time. There's actually also an hour-long interview with him where he describes a very good friendship that he has with one of the Rockefeller guys. And he says, in this movie, Freedom to Fascism, he's interviewing a bunch of Treasury officers who are going and proving on this video that income tax is not only unconstitutional, but it's actually also not a law. And they get lots of people to admit it on screen here. It's extraordinary. And in this, at the end of this, you will see an interview of him where he's talking to Alex Jones, and he says that this Rockefeller guy explained to him already that 9/11 was going to happen before 9/11 happened. And he actually said that there was going to be a major event that would cause them to be able to enact a war on terror. And he described it about 3 years before or 5 years before 9/11 happened. And the Rockefeller guy is the guy who apparently told it to him. So I do actually think that we are at the border of the possibility that a mass awakening is going to occur. It's just a question if we can push everybody over the edge, because you really need to fall all the way over the edge. Because if you don't, and instead you don't fall over the edge, then you're actually still holding on by the narrative that is the narrative that the state gives us.
Hey, can I give you an example of that? Is that similar to, so I was looking at RFK's running mate, this 38-year-old lady, and I was agreeing with like so much what she said, and then she said we need more government regulation to put this in place, and I was like, oh Oh, fuck.
Yep.
Like, she doesn't want to let go. Like, she sounds what she's saying. You agree with her. She wants to hold tighter.
Oh,
She
yeah.
wants to give more power to the government in order to get what we want, instead of just and relax everything and let the fucking dust settle. She wants to fuck. And I was like, oh shit, this is a date.
Yep.
This is a scary woman.
Yeah, and she's also full on climate, just like Bobby is. And there's a couple other things that are just, you know, right on narrative. So it does seem to be that, like every other candidate, you know, they're given a few things that they're able to tell the full truth about, or most of the truth about, and then a bunch of stuff they have to toe the line on. And it's extraordinary. I don't know what to say about that, other than I think he dropped the ball by picking her, but I don't know. I don't have a suggestion of who he would have picked, but it would have been better if he'd have picked Aaron Rodgers. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Even if that was also a joke, it would have been a better joke than this one. But I don't think we should look for anybody to save us. I think that's one illusion that we should burst right now. Even if Trump is elected, I don't think he's going to be a savior. I'm almost certain that since he was a young man, he's always wanted to be a part of their club. And so I think he'll still do anything to be a part of it. And if I'm wrong about that, I'm happy to be wrong about that. And I would be happy to serve in Trump's administration and help him dismantle this nonsense. But I'm skeptical. I'm skeptical of any savior at this stage, unless it's grassroots, unless it's somebody running for my school board or running for my local office. I'm very skeptical of anybody saving us.
Listen to this. We shall have world government whether or not we like it. The only question is whether world government will be achieved by conquest or consent.
That is exactly what I think is happening here. I keep saying it all the time. It's for all the marbles. That's why there's such a spectacular commitment to the story. They know it's for all the marbles. So they have to keep saying that, you know, they have to keep towing the line because it's for all the marbles. And I assume that means that they understand that it's an ongoing show and that the show will continue. And so as long as they keep participating in the show, they'll be able to stay on stage. And anybody that doesn't participate in the show gets kicked off stage. That's what we see here. And the people that are left on stage that are pretending that they're on our team are the ones that are the most dangerous. I think that's where the malevolence hits the road, so to speak, and where we really need to be vigilant, because there are a lot of people who have. You'd be surprised how many people came to Pittsburgh over the last 4 years to talk to me in person who were lying to my face. You'd be surprised how many people called me on the phone or whatever to try and lead me down the wrong path or offer me some day trading scheme or whatever. It's an elaborate theater involving a lot of moving parts. And maybe even a better way to think of the theater is to think of it as a magic show. You're in the audience, and they've actually planted some people in the audience that they've pulled up on stage, and you think, wow, just lucky enough they got called up, but they're actually fully in on the trick. And that's why it's so convincing.
Well, we had a guy on yesterday that says, hey, everyone, don't forget everyone has a price.
Yeah. Well,
and so that was fascinating. You know what? Also along those same lines, there's tons of people around me who are just straight scared. Like they don't even know they're scared. Like I see they're scared. They say stuff. I mean, you know it as well as I do. And I don't think I say anything. Honestly, to me, I don't think I say anything crazy. I think everything I say is just like 7 + 7 is 14. I'm just cruising, right? Oh, look, there's an apple, pick it from the tree, eat it. Makes sense. Like pull the worm out and just eat around the worm, throw the worm on the ground. I'm just a regular dude. But there's people around me who are like, hey, I can't be friends with you like publicly.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm cool. Like I open the door open for old ladies. I don't like.
I had a recent experience
just normal
at a birthday party at our house where I was, helping with the birthday party and talking to parents and meeting all these parents and having a great discussion about things. And at some point in time, it went to, what do you do? And all of a sudden, a couple lights definitely went out. A few other people.
What do you say? Let me ask you that. So Mr. Couey, what do you do?
It's hard to explain, I said, but I teach biology online and it's alternative biology. So, I used to work for, the way I said it was, I teach biology online, and I used to be a consultant for Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and that's what turned to.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, wow.
So that was kind of disappointing because I don't know. I like to be the guy who when they say, "Oh, you worked for Robert F. Kennedy Jr., I think he's great," and then I get to be like, "Well, let's be realistic. I mean, he's better than a lot of guys, but I would just, take it with a grain of salt, look at it realistically, and remember that he's been on the PBS NewsHour a couple times. So it's not very likely. I'm as optimistic as the best of them. Let me say this. If the best case scenario is true, then Bobby Kennedy is doing everything that he's doing right now, including choosing a ridiculously silly vice presidential candidate out of midair. He's doing all of the line towing on Israel and doing all the line towing on climate change so that he can get the keys to the White House. And the moment he gets in there, he's going to just say, "All right, dudes, I was full of shit. Stop the CDC, close the FDA, end all the vaccine schedule, bring all the troops home. I want the banks closed. I want, and he's going to do all the things that he never said he was going to do. We're not going to fund Israel anymore." That would be spectacular. A 14-year-old that's been gaming for the last 50 years to get revenge for his father and his uncle. That would be wonderful.
Right.
But you have to then exclude the possibility that for his whole life he's been groomed by these assholes, which is a much more likely scenario, and that makes him a victim of the system. He's auditioning.
Well, he was groomed by these assholes.
Yeah,
stuck or I mean that's just. I mean, we were all groomed, but he was groomed by some fucked up people.
I mean, come on, they had to have. They had him. They had him for a long time, and so. You can have hope, and I have hope, and it would be great if he gets the keys to the White House and then says, okay, and corrects everything. It would be wonderful. Did you know that Jesse Ventura wrote this book in 2009? It's called "Do Not Start the Revolution Without Me." And in the back of the book, there's a chapter 13, and it's actually not. So this is supposed to be a biography of his time as governor of Minnesota. But the 13th chapter, interesting, 13th chapter, is a fictional chapter where he runs for president. His vice president is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. 2 months after they get elected, Jesse Ventura gets shot, and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. becomes president and cures America, basically. Isn't that hilarious? He wrote that chapter in 2009, dude. It's funny as hell.
Hey, do you follow Minnesota politics at all?
Not really. I mean,
I follow this Instagram account that follows their politics. It is fucking wild.
Minnesota.
Dude, they are like,
oh, yeah.
It is.
Yeah, they have been for a while. I mean,
it's batshit crazy. It's like women getting raped in their homes at fucking gunpoint. They catch the guys, but on a technicality, the guy gets out, kind of shit. It's like, it's fucking nuts, dude.
Yeah,
and it's so corrupt. It's beyond corrupt. Everything's up for sale. It's nuts.
I haven't been following it well enough to know that, but I do know that Minnesota is an odd place. They've also got. They've had a long time immigration issue planted there, and that debate's been going on too long there already, and so they've got a lot of polarization with that as well. But Minnesota is where Floyd happened, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I mean, that's also, from my perspective, in retrospect, I don't know if there's a documentary about that now, if you haven't seen it, where
I saw the doc and I listened to the audiobook, and the lady's supposed to come on the show. That
cool.
Yeah.
That documentary is heartbreaking, dude. Those cops were humiliated and like demoralized to no end. Like, I cannot believe that story was presented the way that it was, where we had senators talking about 7.5 minutes or 9.5. I mean, if you watch that documentary, I'm not really sure anybody can recover from watching that.
The Fall of Minneapolis, dude.
Yeah.
The book's even crazier. It goes into how corrupt it is. It is so corrupt.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're getting that author on your show?
Yeah, what's her name? She's a reporter for Alpha News.
Oh wow, I want you to hook me up with her because
Okay,
I've
yeah.
been meaning to watch that documentary on my show and actually kind of marvel at it in public because I've only watched it with Fearla, and it's just mind blowing. I mean, I just never imagined it was that bad. I mean, to think that they were doing that.
Liz Collin.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna send a note to Sousa too. Oh, can we schedule Liz Collin? Yeah, she's awesome. She narrates. She's the narrator of the movie too. She produced it and narrated it. That's her voice.
Yeah.
Hey, dude, you should listen to the audiobook. It's good.
Okay, I will.
Yeah, it's fast. All right. Hey, thanks for coming on, Jay.
All right, dude.
You think this one has to be pulled off of YouTube?
No.
No, this one's good to go. All right, I think so too.
That we talk about it in such a way they don't even really know what we're talking about, so it's fine.
God bless the king.
Right.
All right, and the queen. All right, buddy. Cheers.
Thanks, man.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh, but one more thing. By the way, one more thing. You have a podcast. How often do you go live? How often are you live?
I'm going often as possible at 1:00 in the afternoon, and it's Giga-Ohm Biological on Rumble, Twitch, YouTube, and
what about Twitter?
I don't go on Twitter. I think you have to pay for that. I wouldn't want to pay for Twitter.
Okay. GIGAOHM.
Biological.
Biological. Yep. Okay.
And that one word at .com, you can find everything there.
Awesome. All right, dude. You man.
Thanks very much.
Yep. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Someone stop saying you read a book when you listen to the audiobook. I don't make the rules. Hey, listen, dude, do me a huge favor. Every time I say I read a book, you just switch it in your head. So every time I say I read a book, you can just be like, you can just write in the comments, he means he listened to it. That'll keep you busy, dude. That'll be cool for you. That'll be fun. You'll like that. I want to show you guys something real quick before I split. I cannot distort reality for you. I cannot distort reality. So you're saying that I did read the book? No, I'm asking you just to tell the truth. Just point out all the places where I misstep, I misspeak. I'm definitely one of those people who really enjoys bigger picture stories. I think it's a vaccine injury when someone's like, yeah, so I was driving down the street in my Lamborghini and someone's like, no, actually that was a Ferrari. And I'm like, the person who interrupts the story for those kind of details, I'm just like, hey dude, shut the fuck up. Like, I don't care. It's an expensive sports car. Like, I don't like, fuck off. Like, it doesn't like, so I'm a big picture guy normally. I mean, the details are important sometimes. I don't want to stick it in the wrong hole. Those two holes are close to each other, but for the most part, just keep your fucking autism, your vaccine injury to yourself. Or I can just make fun of it. Okay, hold on. Let me see. I want to show you guys something on Instagram here. I'm playing fucking checkers and Danielle Brandon's playing fucking chess. I am Pool Boy, are you rapping in this? What is this? Hold on. Stand by. No, that's not you singing. Okay. Here we go. Danielle Brandon. Oh no. The Real Sevon podcast. Okay, that's where I'm going. Okay, look at this. So the greatest video ever taken of Danielle Brandon is from this year's behind the scenes, which I paid for. I paid for everyone to go out there who was on the team, paid for their whatever. It's my production, the Sevon podcast production, and the greatest video ever taken of Danielle ever, which is kind of cool, was from Patrick Rios on the team. Right? And here it is. I'll show it to you. Here it is. There it is. Danielle Brandon. The queen of CrossFit. Fuck the king. Enjoy it. She's on house arrest. You can see her ankle bracelet. You can see when she bends over and holds those, her fucking tits swell with blood. You see her arms. Look at when she comes down here. Look at her hammies. Hamstrings looking crazy. Glutes all bouncing around. Boom. Working hard. Crazy lats. Awesome, right? Absolutely fucking amazing shot, right? It's just the shit. I'm writing down CA peptides paid for. Listen. Without CA peptides giving me the money, this would not have happened. I agree. But this is mine. This is mine. This is mine. This is my production. This is my footage. I brought out the the highly talented, the guy who's at the pinnacle of his craft, Patrick Rios, out on the money that I controlled to film this, right? And when we posted it, I'm sure we offered a collaboration with Danielle Brandon, right? We offered her a collaboration so that she could promote it, and then in turns the behind the scenes would get promoted, right? And look at, there you can see Patrick Rios, he posted it, and he also collabed with himself. See that? So the guy who was actually holding the camera and made the edit, he offered a collab to himself and to me. Collab to himself and the Sevon podcast station and to Danielle Brandon and probably to CrossFit, right? When I own the footage, you would think people would come to me to ask for it. That's what happens. So there's a company out there and they said, hey, we want to use this footage of Danielle Brandon. And Matt Souza said, okay, cool. It'll be $1,000 to use that clip. And then from there, we would give the $1,000 to Patrick Rios. Right? So we took the risk. We went out there. We gave our time. We filmed it. And then we own the footage. And then someone wants to use it. And so you charge them money. Or you don't. Either way. So this company said how much to use that clip. And we know that the clip was massive. And so... Look at it has 38,000 likes as opposed to this one of Dave has 4,000 likes, right? This has 571 comments. This has 48 comments, right? Yeah, totally normal. Risk, work, get paid. Yesterday, I noticed, actually, that's not true. I didn't notice. A friend of mine goes, hey, dude, look at, isn't that your shot on Danielle Brandon's Instagram account? This fucking girl, man. I'm telling you, she is so crafty. I'm over here playing checkers and she's fucking just like tossing me around. Look at this. She got the fucking clip. Hi, Patrick. It's me, Danielle. I'm sliding into your DMs. Do you mind if maybe you could give me a few clips from, from Sevon's footage? From the footage that you were hired to shoot? No problem, Danielle. No problem. Now, in Patrick Rios' defense, I said, hey, dude, if any of the athletes want clips or anything, let's make sure we get it to them to promote the behind the scenes, right? But look how crafty. So Danielle knows that it's behind the scenes. She knows the company that tried to get the clip, right? I'm assuming, but she has a very close relationship with this company that tried to buy the clip from us and then ghosted us, never responded to us. No, Ken, you get a pass. You can post anything that we shoot. You get a pass. But this girl, so then I called Rios and I'm like, yo, dude, what the fuck? How did Danielle get this clip? He's like, oh, she slipped into my DMs and asked for it. I'm like, oh, what'd you do? He's like, I gave her a handful of clips. I'm like, you son of a bitch. And he's like, dude, you told me to share them with the athletes. I'm like, yeah, but Danielle's different. But I didn't tell you that. Danielle should have had to come to me. But I'm telling you, I'm playing fucking checkers, and Danielle is playing chess. I'm out. I'm no match for her. I'm no match for her. And of course, if she would have come to me and asked me, I would have been, of course, Danielle, and anything you wanted. I'd probably done the same thing that Rios did. Of course. But then at least I could have got her to fucking tag the fucking behind the scenes or the podcast or something. This Danielle slipped into my backyard and picked some of the fruit from my trees. This is war. That's what she did. Braylon Tenner, I spoke to Danielle about this. She said she wants you to call her right now on the show. So she can publicly humiliate me. She's so smart and sharp. She just slips in. I'd probably get her on the phone and she'd probably talk circles around me. I wouldn't even know what the fuck happened. Fascinating, right? The drama. Ms. Brandon, able to slip into the DMs of the great Patrick Rios. She snuck into the backyard of Patrick Rios, was able to use her magic voice. Patrick, send me clips. Patrick's like, yes. Danielle, yes. And of course, like I told you, I told him to share it. And I didn't let him know. He's like, but wait, we gave Ariel clips. I was like, yeah, but fucking Ariel, I'm not in a tussle with Ariel. Ariel will do the right thing and tag the podcast or promote the behind the scenes. She's flexing on me, man. Danielle's flexing on me. I know it. Now, there's an alternate story too. Like she has no fucking clue, doesn't care, hasn't given two thoughts about it. Was just like, hey, someone told me this guy Rio shot it, and I'm fucking asked him for it, and he gave it to me. But I call bullshit on that. I know someone in my DM said, hey, someone in my DMs like, hey, she's flirting with you. I agree with Braylon. This is a sign from her that she wants you to reach out. It would be just as healing as the Kotler interview on her documentary. Okay, I'll call her. Fuck it. That's fine. We'll do it. Maybe I should use this phone. I'm gonna ask her if God forbid if she answer and I can fucking talk, because we know that it's gonna be a struggle for me. I'll ask her if she can if she'll tag the podcast. I'm gonna be very assertive. I'm gonna be fucking crazy assertive. You watch how hard I'm gonna come at her right here. Fuck, I'm gonna fuck her up. Watch this. Here we go. Here you go. Oh yeah, my move. Here we go. Hello?
Please leave your message for
Son of a bitch.
725.
It didn't even ring. She probably has me I was gonna say she probably has me blocked, but that would take work. She's not putting any work into me. Fuck, that would have been a great bit, right? Anyway. That's that. That's just a little fun drama. I like it. It's good. It's a good metaphor too, right? How she slipped into the backyard, picked the fruit from my trees, and slid out. She's like a fox. She's not just foxy, but she's a fox. You know? Sometimes I'm not sure if I'm like funny or not. Like it's not even that I question that I'm funny. I just know that I want to be funny, and then sometimes I'm like, I guess I just forget that I'm funny. But you guys need to tell me that more often, how funny I am. I'm funny as fuck. Look at this clip Pool Boy made. Unless this is just like 1 in a million. But you guys need to listen to this. This is fucking amazing. What a fucking I was cracking up. I watched this 3 times with my wife yesterday. Here we go. Here we go. I took my shirt off to encourage Sebby to take his off when we worked out together. Oh, thanks, dipshit. Yeah, I saw you off. I was like, he's so free. I'll be free with him. Wow, right. You took your shirt off, and I was like, I suck.
This dude is absolutely shredded.
Called my wife, and I was like, hey, turn on my fucking Apple tracker. I might drive my car off a cliff on the way home. She's like, why? I'm like, I saw Pool Boy with his shirt off.
Shirt on my Apple tracker.
Oh, that was after I went and worked out at CrossFit Livermore, and Pool Boy was my partner. I think I asked him. It was a partner workout. I was like, hey, you want to do it together? Like, I was like, you know when you're scared to do something, but you kind of just like confront it? Like, I was overcompensating. Like, yeah, you're probably the fittest dude here. I belong with you. I like no business with him. Anyway, I saw that, and I'm like, God damn, I am funny. Thank you, Karina. You are funny as fuck. She wants you to chase her. She stole my apples. She came into my yard and took my shit. That Danielle Brandon girl. I have my moments. Yeah, well, I mean, it's a 90-minute show, and I have to come up with funny shit all the time. I think I have more than my moments. I think I'm just funny. I forget how funny I am. I'm funny as fuck. I don't care what you say. Oh, wow. Vindicate. Pool Boy is a full-size Henry Cejudo. That's pretty good. Sevan, do you think Danielle Brennan's excommunicating you is entirely based on your position on her shoe brand? Could it be more? Hold on. I need to look up what excommunicating is. Excommunicating. Excommunicating means officially exclude from participate in the sacraments or services. Oh, yeah. I mean, the thing is this: we're like, I'm not stupid. Like, she hasn't blocked me. She doesn't hate me. She texts me something. She's fucking pissed. She knows I fucking love her. She knows like I promote the fuck out of her. But she's just pissed because like I fought with her daddy. You know what I mean? And like I made fun of her daddy. And she's just being loyal. That's it. I guarantee you that's it. Like like she doesn't care if I talk about like her. Like, I mean, have you seen the comments on that post? Like, here's the thing. How does anyone ever say anything fucking that I'm fucking creepy when this fucking exists? The creepiest it's creepier to call me creepy than it is fucking most of the shit that I say. It makes me be like, hey, like what? Let's look at these fucking comments on her on this post of hers. Look at these fucking comments. Let me see. How do I go to the comments? Oh, I can't even see the comments. How do I comment? Oh, click this thing. How the fuck do you go to comments? Oh, I can't even see the comments. You can't go to comments? Well, I don't know how to use Instagram anymore. Oh, there they are. Okay. Bravo, Danielle. I've been watching this for 3 days straight. Believe in you. You're amazing. Hold on. Holy Quads, Batman. Talked about her body. I want to start the Church of Danielle Brandon where followers can worship this woman. Like, excuse me. That's creepier than like, by the way, I don't think it's creepy. I don't care. But that's like, that's about as creepy as it gets. Let me see. This is what I look like. God dang, everything moves in all the right places. Strong and sexy. Why does sex have to get involved in it? I never take it to sex. I can't fucking wait to stream your name in front of I can't wait to scream your name. Yeah. All right. Biceps are looking crazy. Better slow down, making me look bad. They're talking about her body again. Never seen kettlebells so interesting before. I love them now. Jesus. What does that even mean? Goddess. Dang, girl. These are pretty benign. I was making it seem there's nothing in here. I misrepresented. I apologize. Queen. Sheesh. Are you going to color your hair? She's awesome. To the moon. Girl. I want to have a body like that. Fuck, she's so jacked. When she was on the live feed, man, there was this one dude who was saying some crazy shit in there. So hot. Muscles stacked on top of muscles. No other woman comes close to you. I love your documentary. It made me cry and love you even more. That's my footage, Danielle. I know what you did. Look at her breast engorged with blood. Oh, yeah. See? Look at I'm a fucking... Exactly. Yeah, I'm like a biologist. Titties just filled with blood. Lats fully pumped. Fucking hammies bouncing around in the back. Like fucking telephone wires blowing in the wind. Yeah. That's what I mean. So thank you for the... My breast just got engorged with blood watching that. Anyway, I was outfoxed by Danielle. I what can I do? I'm just a it's her dream. I'm just living in it. Is that the one? Anyway, I don't excommunicated seems a little strong. We're just in a tussle. Just a tussle. That's not even a beef. No one get crazy. Oh, you want to know what someone said to me yesterday? This was kind of weird. I really appreciate Matt Fraser. I appreciate the fact that he's the 5 times fittest man in the world. I appreciate him for the podcast we did together. I appreciate him for the all the charity work he's doing, the $5,000 a month his group gives away, him going to the Abled Games. I appreciate the fact that he's turned the page, kind of like he's getting a greater awareness maybe of CrossFit and its potential to help people. Like there's a fucking million positive things about him. He's led the way for how to have a successful career as a CrossFit athlete. I think he cracked the code on being the fittest. I think when people are like, well, his method isn't for everyone. Yeah, it is. If you're not a pussy, you can go up there and follow the Matt Fraser way and stay focused for 5 years. And I think you win the games. All that being said, someone said to me in my DMs yesterday, how can you be so hard on Matt when he gave you the platform that you have today? I wish I could fly away in a little spaceship right now and be like, I'll get you, Danielle. I'll be back. You know, like the bad guy at the end of cartoons who gets beat. Just got schooled by her. The power of Danielle Brandon. Everyone, listen. All videographers, photographers out there, listen to me. I give you this warning. Do not look directly into her eyes. When she calls you and asks for footage, put a towel between your ear and the phone, because whatever she asks for, she will get. You will not be able to stop her magic powers. Danielle has magic powers. She can get any footage she wants, any audio, anything. Just warning you, all of you out there. Sevon, when are you going to run the men's boot camp ad? Did the check clear? Yeah, listen. You don't even you listen to fucking your dentist over me. I ain't doing shit for you. Nothing. I just want you to let Trish out of the basement. We all know what you did to Trish. Braylon. You think what's funny is you think no one here knows. We all know. We all fucking know, dude. The joke's on you. We're watching you. All right. Love you guys. See you tomorrow.